Well, welcome everyone. Thank you all so much for joining us. Mayor Farrell, did you want to get started or give it a few more minutes, I guess?
Oh,
Sorry.
wait, I'll defer to you. Whenever you want to start, I think we should get started.
Thank you. Welcome everyone. Thank you to I believe it's our fourth African American Community Public Meeting. This is an official city meeting with the City of Federal Way and the Black community, and we are very excited to continue to have this space. I want to acknowledge that what we did do differently this evening is we have brought another community member in to assist us in moderating. So I want to introduce Deontay Damper. Thank you so much for joining us. I'll give you a moment to introduce yourself and set the stage for your meeting protocols. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Hello, everyone. My name is Deontay Damper. My pronouns are he, him. I wear very many hats in community. In Seattle, I'm the co-chair for the LGBTQ liaison for the city of Seattle. I'm also the co-chair for WA Therapy Fund, which is which works with getting Black therapists more funding in their space to advocate, protect, and build our young youth. And I'm also the chair of Black Lives Matter Seattle King County. So happy to be here today to go through the spaces of moderating this. It's been a while since I moderated, but one thing about Miss Lynn, when she called you to gather, you got to gather. In the meantime, before we get started, I just want to take the time out to acknowledge that we are on Duwamish territory. If you do not know your history, that we are on stolen land, I suggest you start educating yourself on exactly what that looks like for our indigenous community. Get more information and engage in the space of knowing your history from our indigenous brothers and sisters and two-spirited folks. In the meantime, although in community we had something to celebrate, in that mid-second became another fight. So I have to take the time out and thank you, Mayor Farrell and Lynn, for also recommending this in the email today. If we can have a moment of silence, excuse me, Lord, if we can have a short moment of silence for 16-year-old Markia Bryant, who was murdered in front of her parents. I can keep going, but I ain't gonna cuss on here, so we can just do the moment of silence, please. Ashe. Okay, so we will. I would love to get started, but the climate of that is just really heavy. Just my 16-year-old niece, she's having a birthday today, and just to think that could have been her is the thing that I just keep thinking about. So I'm praying for all my community people out there. We had one thing to celebrate, but the movement still keeps going. But in the process of moderating today, please understand that this is a community space. While we all here may be passionate, we all also have to remember to be respectful. One mic, one voice. Give someone the opportunity. It's like we're all Destiny's Child. You have to give somebody the opportunity to be the Beyonce, if that makes sense. But yeah, in the meantime, I think we'll get started. But the main thing about it is just showing one another respect. We are really dealing with a really high climate right now, and we know that people will feel passionate, but we just have to make sure that we're giving each other space. In the meantime, I think we'll get started with the Federal Way Black Collective update. Lynn?
Thank you. Joanna, do you have capability to share screen yet?
I do, 1 second.
Thank you. I won't take up too much time tonight, you guys. So just general inquiries. please use info@fwblackcollective.com. We can go to the next one, Joe. Sound transit updates will be covered a little bit later, but this was just a brief update and a reminder to please fill out the survey. Just a brief update about our ages and stages questionnaire. We do direct screenings for families as well as training for providers. So definitely reach out, and that is asq@fwblackcollective.com. Oh, there we go. And you can reach either Debbie or Ashley, our case manager, and they can assist with more resources there. Our community groups are mostly on Facebook, and you can also get more connected on our website. So we have a men's group, a women's group, where we provide like co-parenting support and safe spaces for for important conversations on an intergenerational level. So we are looking to have folks from all age ranges, whether you're a youth or an elder in community. This is a space where we'd love to continue to grow community and have those conversations. So please join, and we look forward to seeing you in those spaces. Go to the next one. We have live stream shows weekly. We've always had Thursday Thoughts for about 3 years now, but in January, we started Health and Wellness Mondays. And so every Monday from 6:30 to 7, we will have Richard Smith and Dr. Dawn, both with Black Nurses Rock, as well as you're able to connect with them with our South King Emotional Wellness League program for more individualized service check-ins and referrals for mental health services. And next. We have partnered with Black-owned Business Excellence, the Small Business Association, the Department of Commerce, and the Minority Business Development Association. So many fun acronyms. So if you are a Black business owner or want to get connected to this program for the specific free trainings we offer, as well as assistance for grants and loans, and just business to business services and business building, please get connected. We have a email list that goes out, and we have events that we're planning. So our next event will be in May. They're quarterly, as well as weekly. We have business events that go live, and we have a calendar that can show you how to connect with those and make sure that your business has what you need to thrive. So definitely reach out to us if we can be of any assistance. Right now, there's more Working Washington grant funds out. So we definitely want to connect as many businesses as possible to those funds so they can be sustainable. On the 29th, our South King Emotional Wellness League, in partnership with King County Public Health, will be doing another COVID vaccine community conversation. So please check that out so you can get more information, ask the questions that you have, so that we can be as informed as possible. And as always, we do provide community resources. So if you need rent or utility assistance, small business assistance, childcare assistance, any type of assistance, please reach out to us. We still offer one-on-one meetings virtually, so you don't have to come in person. And if you have the ability to be a resource, please connect with us and let us know how, so we can share with folks that you have resources in our community. I think that's the last slide, right, Joe?
Yes, ma'am. Would you like me to go back to the other one?
No, that is all. I will pass it back over to Deontay.
Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you so much, Lynn. And I love what Skill's doing in this space. So definitely shout out to Terry.
Oh, and many shout out. Deontay is one of the founders of that group. King County Public Health brought a bunch of Black-led organizations together. And I thank you for your leadership and still staying a part of the crew and making sure we get that, move that with those priorities forward.
I got to, and the next person is, and I just have to tell this brief story because he's a part of the crew too. I'll never forget our event, our July event. It was we were doing COVID testing, and we were actually having therapists there. It was going to be outside. Well, it started raining. And I remember just being so sad because I thought we had to end early. And I remember Lynn saying no. I know just who to call, and I'm just so grateful for Mayor Farrell, who actually kept that space, who opened up the space for us to continue our event. It kept us going, and it made us want to do it more. And that's what I think we should be looking for in all mayors. In the meantime, updates from the mayor's update.
All right. Thank you very much, Deontay. It's great to see everybody again. We've got a big development here at the city, and historic. Last Monday was our diversity, equity, and inclusion manager's first day, and it's Erica Esqueda. Hi, Erica. We had a very public process. Thank you for the folks that served on the committee. I really appreciated your input. We had a lot of great candidates, and we did make sure that we had a public process and one that was inclusive of the community. Erica, let me give you a little bit of background, what her background is. She started on April 12th. She earned her BA in Community Health Education from Central Washington University. For the past 7 years, Erica has worked in the public sector in the areas of human services. This includes homelessness and household stability program manager at the city of Tacoma, most recently, and Veterans and Human Services Coordinator, and then promoted to Human Services Manager previously with the city of Auburn. So South King County and Tacoma, it's a great experience. For the past few years, while at Tacoma, Erica focused on efforts on making their programs anti-racist and equitable. This included leading the second phase of the Supporting Partnerships for Anti-Racist Communities with the acronym SPARK initiative, working with a third-party vendor to support the contracted providers to make their work more equitable. I helped develop the Pierce County Continuum of Care strategic plan to include more anti-racist and equitable outcomes, and staff the Continuum of Care Race and Equity Subcommittee. Welcome, Erica. I appreciate you being here, and wanted to give you the space to maybe say a few words and introduce yourself and your hopes for the future.
Thank you, Mayor. And thank you everyone for allowing me to be a part of your meeting. This is wonderful, especially, me being new and learning a lot, and to see such a large invested group into this work. It's just like, it's wonderful to see that I'm just kind of inviting myself into being a community partner. I hope everyone's okay with that. And so I'm going to put my contact information into the chat. So if anyone wants to reach out to me and discuss further opportunities, how we can work together, I would absolutely love that. And like Mayor Farrell said, I've done a lot of equity and anti-racist work for the city of Tacoma. It included hiring, strategic planning, contracting, procurement. And so I feel like I have a lot of tools that I can bring into Federal Way. And I live here. This is my community. My son goes to school here. So I have a lot of personal investment too. So thank you again for giving me this space to be here with you guys.
Great. Thanks, Erica. We're really excited about the work she's gonna be doing, and with all of us. And there's a lot to do, so it's a matter of sometimes we're going to try to focus in on particular areas. Before I say another word, I really need to recognize our council president, Councilmember Tran. We're partners together, policy partners, and thanks so much for all your work. And we also have, speaking of partners, our former colleague on the city council now, Representative Johnson. Hi, Jesse. And Representative Johnson, and Representative Taylor, great to see you. Thank you so much for your work down there. And because we're just about ready to start the legislative update, and instead of me talking about it, would one of you like to talk about? I was going to talk about the one-stop youth center capital request at $80,000 and the capital capacity building for Federal Way BIPOC youth serving organizations operating request of $75,000. So instead of me talking about it, can you guys talk about it?
I'm happy to address those couple items, Mayor Farrell. Thanks for the introduction. Super excited to be here. Obviously, we're probably both a little bit emotionally drained. Rep. Taylor and I, we are in the midst of the last days of session in day 102, and we're wrapping things up. We just passed some major policies today, and we still have to figure out the Blake decision and climate, carbon, a whole bunch of stuff. So I don't even want to get into all that, but I will say that this year we're really excited about what we passed locally in terms of funding. Hopefully it is signed into law by the governor, but we did get funding to launch our first ever one-stop resource center in the city of Federal Way. And similar to the Reed Center in Tacoma, this will be a workforce development, youth development, organizing type space for young people to come in and get their educational and career pathway needs met. Also, we got money for capacity building. We got $75,000 for capacity building dollars. I do want to shout out a couple individuals, Cynthia Makatan and Louis Guyden, who were very, Cynthia doing all of the logistical work in teamwork with Lynn Idahosa and Federal Way Black Collective, but also Louis Guyden, who has been a thought partner with myself around capacity building for our youth organizations for like the past couple of years. He's someone that I've bounced ideas off of and also held us accountable in terms of making sure that it gets to the right hands. So I'm excited about that. We also got $500,000 for Federal Way Public Schools to launch pre-apprenticeship program at Federal Way High School next fall. And so this is something I've been working on for a while now. And in the fall, we got $250,000 through King County. And now I'm happy to couple that with $500,000 so we can start construction trades at Federal Way High School. I believe I don't know if it's publicly at Federal Way High School yet, but in talks with the CTE program at Federal Way Public Schools, that's where they're considering it. And then we also got funding for our Little League ball fields over in West, I guess, kind of Southwest Federal Way, Winco. And so they're going to be expanding those ball fields, which is huge. I mean, youth have been inside for a year now. I drive past those ball fields every day on my walk around Panther Lake. And I think that they can just be increased, and you know, more spending for youth is never a bad thing, especially in times of COVID. So excited about that. And I'll give Rep. Taylor the opportunity to talk about her big project with housing. But I did also want to mention we got funding for El Centro de la Raza, who has been a great partner within the city to continue their great work for our young people as well. But I'll hand it off to Rep. Taylor to talk about housing.
Thank you, Rep. Johnson. We are truly a team in the state House of Representatives. And one project I was able to secure funding for was $3 million towards workforce housing. So if you think about the condos and the apartments that are over by 272nd and the on-ramps there, that would be transit-oriented housing that would help folks who are in the workforce. And this is in partnership with the Multi-Service Center. It's, I think, 216 units. And there's just a lot of work that still needs to be done, but it's important and imperative that, you know, communities have options, affordable housing options in the 30th district. Also been working with the Federal Way Chamber on some community and economic development opportunities so that we can bring, recruit, and retain businesses, not only traditional businesses, but women-owned businesses, veteran-owned businesses, and BIPOC, Black, Indigenous, and people of color-owned businesses into the community, and make sure that they have additional, I would say, capacity building resources to ensure that they are here for the long term. And hopefully they can work with some organizations that are doing great work in the business community or in communities of color specifically. And so, you know, just the amount of work that's coming out of the chamber, the House of Representatives, we're leading on you know, putting racial equity as a focus on all of our policy making and budget making. I mean, everything from our transportation projects to capital projects, and as well as our operating fund. And so you'll see that reflected when we get the final budgets. Well, Jess is a little closer to the budget negotiations than I am, but as soon as we are able to, we will be publishing what has been negotiated between the two chambers, and then hopefully will be signed into law by the governor. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask.
All right, thank you. On our federal agenda, we're making progress, and as police reform is taking a look at police pursuits, we're actually looking at our Safe City camera program, and specifically perhaps with license plate readers, with the idea of setting up, instead of actual physical pursuits, where you could do a digital pursuit type of thing, where it would really reduce the danger to the community. Something we're looking at on a federal level, but we're also this same funding source will have we're looking for matching funds for body cameras, which will help establish the program, which we was talking about earlier this week in the Mirror about how we have a commitment now to really turn the corner and move forward in a very meaningful and intentional way to implement a body camera program. That's something we're really working on. We're also working with Senator Murray and Representative Smith on ARPA funding that will support broadband programs and will help expand our free broadband services. And it's a massive, massive investment in our communities that is ARPA, the American Recovery Plan Act. And we're really working through that. Tim Johnson is really working through ARPA, and we're going to have agenda setting tomorrow where Council President Honda and I are going to be talking with staff, and it's one of the things I was thinking about having a presentation by Tim Johnson about what's available. There's also a large commitment in our federal lobbying programs to environmental justice, as BIPOC communities are disproportionately affected by pollutants from industry and airports. Infrastructure funding will help rebuild our water infrastructures. There's clean water. That's something that we're really looking at. We previously in this group talked about Black-owned businesses, Black-owned banks in Federal Way. Our economic development director, Tim Johnson, provided information on Black-owned banks and criteria to consider that prioritizing outreach to banks. We're ready to actually form a community subcommittee now to do that outreach to banks and begin substantive discussions. This week, we're going to have the two task forces that we set up in response to COVID, the business resiliency and the community resiliency, community continuity task forces. And those are community continuity is their social service community groups, education groups, as well as the business resiliency, which is, members of the representative of the business community. Business is tomorrow, and the community resiliency is Friday for those task force meetings. We've really working on shop local efforts in Federal Way. We've registered over 4,000 local businesses into that program, and we're making sure that we highlight a lot of those folks, in there. Sound transit update. I think that had been a discussion about that. There's been a lack of data on the impact to Federal Way BIPOC community, and so it's important that we hear from our BIPOC community. And there are public comments. Public comment is open on that process right now, so I would really highly encourage those comments. Because this kind of infrastructure is obviously once in a generation. City's position on the two proposed Federal Way sites. The City Council actually sent a letter to the Sound Transit Board formally opposing the two Federal Way sites. One is the one at 336th, and the other is 344th. For the long-term detrimental impacts, and we favor clearly the Midway location, and we sent a letter to that effect. It looks like we were talking about this in our planning meeting for this meeting, but we're going to be having a City Council study session in early June regarding police accountability, and that'll be a study council session that I'll be a part of. And the legislature also has addressed some of these issues that they're going to be talking about next steps in regard to and seeking input, and then having a discussion as council members. Many have heard about the Auburn ordinance in regard to criminalizing homelessness. I want to let everybody know I do not support that. I do not support a criminal ordinance with regard what Auburn did. And we really care about our partners in Auburn, and they are working really hard. They've got a reason. Each city approaches these issues in a particular way. Had a great conversation with Mayor Backus today, and they're doing, you never know where people are at really in their own process. But here in the city of Federal Way, we just don't feel like that's necessary. It really, I just don't feel like that's something that we should do at all. And I feel strongly about it. So I've talked to a few council members about it. Obviously the council president's here, but I don't think that's necessary. We're planning for the Juneteenth celebration on June 19th. And I see Trinice here. Hi, Trinice. Chair of our Diversity Commission, and thank you for all your work. And we're going to be working on that, and we actually put the flag that we raised last time. We put in the time capsule, so we had to go order a new flag. Remember how we were down to the wire last year, Trinice? So we've got our flag. Actually, it's in Bill's office, and it's actually been out and displayed for the past couple of weeks. So we're getting excited about that, and we still have to socially distance and all that, but we're really looking forward to having a good crowd and really making sure that we celebrate that and raise that flag. Let's see here. So we'll have to get started. And there's been a lot of discussion, you guys, about sister city relationships, and we did something about with Ukraine, previously, but there's also in this forum discussion about having a sister city relationship with a city in Africa. And I love that idea. And I think that's something that we need to maybe form a study group, or not a study group, but like a subgroup, and really start thinking about, outreach to particular nations and cities, individual cities, and seeing, where that could really be a value added, where we could really have a meaningful sister city relationship. It's been a long time since we've gone to our two sister cities that we have right now, one in Donghae, South Korea, and then the other in Japan, so Hachinohe, and so we haven't been there in a long time. So we need to do right by our current sister cities, but we also, I think, have a really great opportunity to do something very interesting and rewarding, and that will help our community. So that's something that we can discuss further as well. So I think we're going to talk about vaccinations later. That I think that takes care of my report, and I'm available for any kind of questions. Hope I didn't go on too long. Can you guys still hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
I had a question in the chat, Mayor.
Yeah.
It's written there for you. I don't want to be rude and take up your time, but
that's okay. Oh, is it? Does it start?
$33 million budget for federal police department.
Oh, there we go.
1.5 million to buy body cams, $500,000 a year to run them. You've had 7 years to do this. I don't believe your commitment of really looking at it. You've been against it the entire time you've been in public office. You're a former prosecutor. You are too pro-cop. The entire federal police department does not have anywhere near enough accountability. None. Nowhere near. It is these little tiny towns where people get killed. People who look like me. People who look like me die because there is not enough accountability. I pay taxes enough, and I don't care about the money. I care about my life. You have been against this for years.
And the time has come, David. The time has come. And we care about your life. We care about everyone's life in this. And I actually, you know what? I hear you, David. And I this past year, I have learned and grown. And I think this entire country has. And I had concerns about it before. I don't have it. I don't have those concerns now. You have my commitment. We're going after this. Now, David, in the short term, we are trying to find additional fundings. If we can't find this funding elsewhere, we will find it. You're right. We've got a big budget. Now, we've got all kinds of different priorities. But my commitment to you, David, is we'll find the money. We're going to do this. Okay.
Absolutely.
And David, actually, I was talking about this before I was talking to a reporter earlier this week about this very issue. And my former job and what I used to do before I did this, and we need this on accountability for people in the justice system, where it's defense attorneys, prosecutors, judges, juries. Everybody needs access to that information. So I think obviously I've had a prior position about it, but I'm committed to this now, and you can hold me to that. Okay.
Okay. And I'm so sorry, because what ended up happening was I trailed off the agenda. We're gonna wait. We're gonna wait for Q&A because we wanted to make sure that we got an update from Lakeisha. I apologize, everyone. You can just hold off for your questions until we get every update. Ms. Phillips.
All right, mine will be pretty short. I was asked to just update a little bit on kind of the efforts around vaccinations from the school district. So currently the district has already offered or vaccinated over 1,000 teachers and 500 families locally. We've had an event at Lakota and Todd Beamer. And obviously with the changes in vaccination requirements, the school district is setting up a few more events. We're just nailing down the dates. We haven't got them down yet, but we're nailing down the dates. So that way we can have eligible students come in and community members. There's been some great partnerships with Seattle Children's, with Ohm Life. We're looking at also included wrapping testing. So we've got some options that are coming up, and I'll make sure to share more as they come up. Thanks. Nope, Dante, you're still on mute, but you're almost there.
All right, okay. I was about to say, I know. Wait a minute, Comcast. I paid the bill today. Don't play with me. So in the meantime, okay. So thank you so much, you three, for your updates. And thank you so much, community, for listening. We're going to just take a small 5-minute break, and we will be right back. I have some Hot Pockets in the microwave. So that's what we're okay. But just everybody just take 5, and then we're going to go to Q&A. Thank you.
You coming in, so I will continuously post the agenda so that you can open it. And I just posted some information, resources on protecting yourself from COVID. In there is how to get vaccinated, links to websites regarding myths, regarding the vaccines, and other resources specifically for the BIPOC community. So I will continue to post these things in the chat. Thank you.
Give everybody a few more minutes. In the meantime, I just need to know. I'm going to just ask everybody this. Can I ask the first question? Jesse, so what do you put in your hair? Because I promise you, I was trying to, I'm telling you.
I literally have envy. He has what I've been working on for years.
You.
I just started the lock journey. So I actually don't put nothing in the last month. But before that, I had like some special twist stuff. I'll send you a link, Dante. I got you.
All right, well, give me
the link for Tristan, Rep Johnson.
Give me a couple of months to grow it out. I had to fade it up.
I highly recommend the Lock Shop on 348th and Federal Way. Once you start growing it, it's amazing. They're good.
But y'all heard that? Lock Shop, support Black business. My barber keeps on pushing my line back, but that's a different story. We are all back. Thank you all for being here for part 2. I guess we're here for the Q. This part is a Q&A. And remember, everyone, one mic, one voice.
Excuse me. Mayor Farrell, did you have a question? Sorry.
Oh, you did? I'm sorry. I didn't even see the hand.
Oh, that's okay. I didn't want to interrupt you. I do want to, we've got 4 other city council members present, which is a real statement of commitment. It's just, I wanted to recognize them. We've got council member Greg Baruso, council member Lydia Acefa Dawson, and council member Martin Moore, and council member Leandra Kraft. And so that means 6 members of the city council are here tonight. So I just want to recognize them and acknowledge them.
Awesome. So we will get started with the Q&A. I did get an anonymous question, so I'll just read it out. Since the mayor has made leadership commitments not to penalize or criminalize unhoused folks in our city, how can community leaders and partners support him and find solutions to uphold these values?
Is that directed to me? How could
I believe so.
Okay. Well, I think that we're all in this together. We're one big community. And, I will say that, that sometimes it feels like a small town, but this is getting to be we're about 100,000 people. I think that we all need to be aware of resources that are out there when we see people that are suffering, to be able to have, at our fingertips. There have been times where Susan has called me, from a particular location previously about, hey, encountered somebody at this location. Do we know if there's a shelter open right now? I think it's if we could be more educated about what's open, what services are available, to give referrals to folks, to really lend a helping hand. I think also we just really the social media stuff. I think sometimes the tone is not productive, and people are passionate because I think that passion is a representative of their efforts to defend their city, or in their own mind, their emotion about this is in defense of their city. But I think that we need to be thinking about I saw something the other day, you guys, that said it was the former president of Highline College, Jack Birmingham, and he said we should never, no human being is illegal. And I think it's really be thinking about focusing on our language, about how we talk with people. When I was talking about the Auburn ordinance, I thought, is this really what we're gonna? What in the world? How much jail time would you give for somebody sleeping on the sidewalk? How much of a fine would you give for somebody who literally has no other resources? We need to be thinking about how we can help people up, and provide resources.
Thank you. Anyone Q&A? Terry Rogers Kemp.
Hi, Terry.
Hello, Your Honor. I want to thank the Federal Way Black Collective and the City of Federal Way leadership, council members, and mayor for having this regular access for us. A very brief comment on the Auburn situation. I question the constitutionality of that type of an ordinance, and I would encourage the leaders to look at the inherent racism and elitism in having a desire to have that particular ordinance along with the ordinance itself. Mayor Farrell, my question to you is on the heels of the Derek Chauvin verdict and watching the precision with which that prosecution was done. I would like to know your thoughts and hope to get your commitment on the importance of the King County prosecutor and other prosecutors ceding these jurisdictions with regard to prosecuting police officers immediately, ceding jurisdiction to the Attorney General's office if there is another homicide committed by police officers in Federal Way, and encouraging other city leaders to do the same. Encourage King County Prosecutor Satterberg to cede these cases to the Attorney General's office, and also your support in our having a completely independent prosecutor, perhaps housed within the Attorney General's office, but completely independent of those relationships with police officers. And there are too many homicides to count, but this trial has been evidence that with an independent prosecutor of the local jurisdiction, it can be done, contrary to some of the statements made by our esteemed Attorney General, and it should be done. Thank you. And thank you, Mr. Moderator.
Yeah, he's doing a great job, isn't he?
Thank you. I appreciate that. I might be back next week. I don't know. Thank you very much, Ms. Kemp. Next, we will have Ms. Idahosa.
Oh, I think maybe Terry wants
I do.
Did you answer?
I think she wants an answer. Exactly. I was like, yeah.
I am so sorry. I'm sorry.
So, Terry, I sometimes I have, I like everybody, and sometimes I have an immediate reaction to something, and let me think on that. I normally, where the AG gets involved is where there is a potential conflict of interest, where they do that. I have not put any thought into that. I would like to think about it a little bit. I spent 16, and Susan's going to laugh because every meeting I've been at with Susan, she hears this, but I spent 16 years with King County in that office. That's where you and I met, Terry, and where we had cases together. So and I always say together because that's the spirit with which I always always tried to take, just try to figure out what occurred in a case. And it was always a pleasure to work with you, Terry. We share the same birthday, by the way, you guys, September 15th. And but let me say that I'll think about it. I hadn't put any thought in regard to officer involved. Clearly, I think what we always look for in juries, and I've probably had 200 jury trials, you guys, in 19 years of being a prosecutor, a city before county. Is what you always look for is you look for a jury that's not tainted. You always look for, Terry, you've had jury trials, is you have to, you have jury selection to see if somebody is more biased or not, and that is for the trier of fact. I'll put some thought into it. And I think actually what you're really talking about is a fundamental restructure of the criminal justice system as it relates to the prosecutor. Now, I've heard that before, but I don't quite know what that means with regard, and I'd like to talk with you maybe more offline, but it's these kinds of genuine conversations and issue raising that I want to be thinking about it. I think clearly if Satterberg, I worked for Dan for, he was chief of staff my first 9 years there, and then he was the elected prosecutor during the last, what was that? Norm passed away in 2007. The last 6 years I was there, and 6 or 7 years. And so I've got a tremendous amount of respect for Dan. So I want to put some thought into it.
Is that cool, Terry? Because you a lawyer. If you want a rebuttal, I give you.
Yeah, exactly.
And if y'all don't know, absolutely. If y'all don't know Terry Rogers Kemp, just know that she is essential.
I see the point. And really, where I think where Terry's coming at this, if I could, Terry, is that what you're really looking for is somebody who can objectively, when to decide the facts, is objectively review the material without passion or prejudice, without knowing anybody involved. In fact, if anybody in the jury knows any of the parties, they're immediately dismissed. So what role, as for trying to find justice, seek justice on officer involved, shootings and fatalities, how best to achieve justice. So it's a good point.
Thank
you. Yeah.
Thank you. Ms. Idahosa?
Hi. And I have to take some deep breaths. And I really try not to get into my feelings on this, but I'm like my brother who spoke earlier. It's just hard to keep watching people say, just wait, just wait. I just want to ask how long? How long is it that you guys want us to continue to wait when people are dying? You guys are just now seeing it because you watched George Floyd on the TV. We've been watching it our entire life.
Yeah.
Our entire life. Many of our brothers and sisters and family members and friends have died at the hands of the police. And for you guys to keep asking us to wait, it's really hard for me. And I know I'm not the only one because the world is setting things on fire for this very reason. So again, for Mr. Mayor, I'm asking you, we've had, like the gentleman said, more than 7 years they've been asking for police cameras. I know it's been at least 3. We have personally been asking for police accountability boards. So for you to continue saying wait, and I know you're up for election this year, and I guess now everybody knows that the Black vote really does count. So, and I've spoken to several of the city council people that are sitting here too, and you're not excused because I know, and so does everybody else, many of the cities and states have made major changes in their police departments, in their legislature, in the laws and things in their cities. They've made major changes in a short time because of all of this that's been happening. So it's no excuse that we are not doing the same here. And no, I don't want to continue to wait. But my issue is also that we just passed the city budget. And in that budget, again, there were no cameras. There were no cameras. And we just have to do better. My thing is that, and I told the city council, several of them, that for me, I co-wrote some law that changed history for the child protective services across the nation. I wrote it for Federal Way when I saw a problem here in Washington State. I had no idea that that would go across the nation and shut down the child protective services and change them. But when I say that, I also had conversations with people and I said, because these children are dying and I see what's happening, if you're not going to make real changes with it, I don't want a part of it. So I know our law took 90 days. So for you can tell, 7 years and 3 years, to me, it's, I'm trying to be polite in my conversation. I'm not a cusser, but I feel like if I cuss, you maybe understand me a little bit better. I'm just being serious.
No, I hear you.
No. Too many people have died and you guys continue to say, wait, I got to think about that. Let me read. What does it take? People are dying. It needs to change and it needs to change now. Thank you guys for listening. But I definitely want not just your words, we want some action.
Okay. Well, Teresa, what we did add this to our legislative agenda. That was just this year that we started. We put that on the legislative agenda. It was approved in December. We're in the legislative session now. We're working with we're working right now. We hired a federal lobbyist and we're working on this right now. But I can guarantee you that even if we don't find it for our lobbying efforts, we will find the money. And we've got a supplemental budget, that we do in the mid-course. Well, I'm working on it. This is something we're actively working on. That's why it was part of my review today.
Thank you very much. Ms. Tamar? Excuse me, Tamar? Did I pronounce it correctly?
Yeah, you did. You did.
Okay.
Thank you. It's good to be here with everyone for this conversation. Thank you for our electeds for participating. My question is, the criminal justice system is a hot button issue for all of us, and especially for Black and Native folks. And I feel all the rage that all the folks on this call have expressed. But what I'm really curious about is, Federal Way has had a large influx of Black and Brown folks move to Federal Way because it's affordable, because, we can be small business owners, we can actually, participate in civic life. And in the 6 years that I've lived in Federal Way, I've never gotten the sense that politicians have actually taken us seriously as constituents, as residents, as folks who are trying to buy homes and own businesses. And so what I'm curious about is, what will it take for our electeds to actually make room for us in civic life and include us in political decision-making and sharing power, given that we're being gentrified out of Seattle, out of, King County, and moving to the places that we can't afford to live and send our children to school and participate in life. And so what does it look like to actually include us in the political decision-making process?
This is having meetings like this. Thank you, Tamar, for your question. Conversations like this, being active and involved in getting people in positions, either in the city council or in commissions and in the state legislature, and making sure that the people who serve in positions of leadership reflect our community. And so, that's why this is the fourth time we've had this meeting. I think this is a very historic and important conversation for these honest, hard conversations to occur. And Teresa, the only reason I laugh for a minute is that sometimes the only way to actually get your point across about how you feel is to use a swear word. And I've done it before. I do it, more often than I should. And so that's why I'm in agreement with you that sometimes that's the only way I can get my I was kind of laughing at myself a little bit about I feel the same way sometimes. So I totally understand the passion where you come at it, just like your brother. And so I want to let you know that for me, it hasn't been 7 years. I know that the request is maybe, but we've turned a corner. I think that the past year, I understand that there's been so much anger and so much, just absolute disgust and frustration, and that for us now to start coming around, you're seeing now what we have seen for your whole lives, but we're there with you. I think, Tamara, what I would say is that I think in regard to communication or engagement, it's about making sure that these honest conversations are occurring, and you hold the elected leaders accountable. I've made a commitment now. We're gonna move forward on body cameras. We're gonna find that money, and that's a priority for us. You know, what David said is there's 33, actually it's more than that. It's more than 33 million. Now we've got it all, all pigeonholed in a lot of different places, but if something's a priority, then act like it. And we're going to do that. But you can only, but Tirza, you're spot on. You can only go with how people, people can say anything. It's about what do they do. And so that's my big commitment is we're going to do, and that's what that's what this meeting's about. That's being intentional about what we're doing and the conversations we're having.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Tamar, for asking the question. Before I call on the next person, I see 54 people in this room, and I just want to encourage people to we all are in the moment where I think that we all are. Some people are just thinking it and afraid to say it. Please feel free to raise that hand and let your voice be heard in this space. Yes. In the meantime, Ms. Cynthia.
Thank you. Just a couple of things. Because people are still joining the meeting, I will occasionally attach the agenda for the meeting and information about vaccines into the chat. So please check that out. Also, if you do not have access to raise your hand, unmute yourself and let Deontay know that you have a question in between. When we have a moment in between. And the other thing I want to say, besides the fact that Deontay is doing a great job, is that there are some other ways to stay involved. I applaud Lynn for working with the mayor to set up these quarterly meetings. But you can vote. If you are 18 and older, you can vote, and you should vote. Considering all of the laws that are out there now trying to restrict our vote, don't let it happen. Exercise your right to vote. Even participating in the legislative session is easy. You can wear your pajamas, log on, and make a comment. I've done it, but not when Representative Taylor and Representative Johnson were just speaking. You can write a letter and have it submitted, right? We have public, last night was the city council meeting, right? You could have public comment at the city council meeting, 3 minutes for an individual and 5 minutes for a group, right? Exercise your right to be heard. The other thing is that you can write your council members. You can write your legislative officials and let them know, I have a concern and I have a right to be heard, right? It's up to us to make sure that we stay on people's minds. If you think about it, when a kid wants something, what do? They nag you to death, right? There's something to be learned from our youth who are disproportionately being killed by gun violence, right? Who are going through suicidal ideation because of COVID-19 and having to be confined, right? We need to have a voice to advocate for them. They are our future. So I applaud all of you for being here. Continue to use your voice. Okay, I'm done.
Any more? Hold on. Looks like I got. Hold on. Okay, this one is, this is not for the mayor. This is actually for the city council representatives. Last night, hold on, wait a minute. Okay, so last night, the Auburn ordinance was brought to the city council meeting last night. We'd love to hear from members from the city council on why the ordinance was something that they wanted to consider. Susan?
Hold on, I want to read my whole question.
Yeah,
So,
girl, I'm waiting. That's
I know. Council meeting
I was
last night.
waiting for you.
I'd love to hear from members of city council why that ordinance was something they wanted to consider here. Perhaps if we understood the solution they were seeking, we may be able to find a better alternative. What other solutions have you looked into? Because this was initially proposed or passed in Mercer Island before it popped up in Auburn, and there were lots of negative public comments. What made this seem like a good proposal for Federal Way?
This is Susan Honda. It wasn't proposed for Federal Way. When I mentioned it in my comments, I mentioned it to the City Council that on the April 12th study session of the Auburn City Council, they spent an hour and a half or so discussing this ordinance, and that I thought it would be interesting for our City Council members to watch the discussion and to, I thought it was a very well done discussion and presentation by the staff, because they talked about more than the ordinance. They talked about where the homeless folks are living in Auburn and other things that they've done. They've been working on this for about a year and a half on trying to get some of these chronically homeless folks housed. And it was never proposed for Federal Way. It's never come up. I don't know where that came from. Terry's hand is up. Can I call on her?
Absolutely. Well, I want to moderate.
Sure.
Can I
Yeah.
I'm just playing with you. I'm just playing.
No, I know. I just saw her hand. So.
Thank you, Councilmember Honda. Of the persons that were there to discuss this issue, I trust that there were also homeless people there to have that conversation and other individuals who were impacted. And I have to tell you, esteemed council member, I truly am offended when we as a community determine that we are going to alienate other members of our community, particularly when we stand on land that was unfairly and unjustly seized from Native Americans. And if there were no impacted community members there or representative for them, then I do take issue with your characterization that a 90-minute discussion was well done. And I stand by my contention that, in fact, it is elitism that determines that there are some individuals who have a place in our community because they look a certain way or speak a certain way or have a certain economy that they live by. And thus is where otherings are engendered when, you know, the Black folks at the end of a police officer's weapon, for some police officers, it's the way that those officers think of the individuals that they're causing harm to. As the esteemed prosecutor said in Mr. Chauvin's case, that it wasn't that Mr. Floyd's heart was too big, it was that Mr. Chauvin's heart was too small. And so I think that this type of an ordinance discussed in 1.5 hours that's going to have a tremendous impact on individuals who were not even there. I think that it is I think it is imprudent, and I think that it's a little bit offensive. Thank you for letting me speak.
So I'd like to respond to that, because I'm not sure where this is coming from, since we aren't discussing this and it wasn't a topic that had been brought up.
No, you were saying that it was a well-run discussion at Auburn, discussion at Auburn.
So what I thought was well done was that they actually took the cameras into the areas where the homeless people are living in Auburn. And I don't think that many of our council members or even of our public have been into the homeless camps here in Federal Way. And I thought that's what I thought was well done. It was showing where people are living, how they're living. And it was talking about the program that Auburn already has with their homeless advocate. I can't think of his name. He was hired about 1.5 to 2 years ago. And what he's doing to try to get the homeless people out of the camps and into shelter and into services. That's what I thought was well done. So I'm sorry you're offended by that, but it's a discussion we haven't had thoroughly, as thoroughly as Auburn did in their study session. And, you know, Auburn's been working really hard to get their homeless people sheltered. He talked about a mother with 5 or 6 children who has been homeless for many, many years, and she doesn't trust being inside, and how he has worked to get her inside into an apartment with her children. And their agreement is that she stays inside 2 nights a week, and is out in the camp with her children 5 nights a week, and how hard he had to work with her to even get that. So that's what I thought was well done about it.
Yes. Thank you, Councilmember Honda. I just love this space because we're able to have a conversation with one another, and we're also able to receive the statements that are coming. So very much shout outs to the ones that are able to receive what's being said in this space, because I don't think we're here to offend one another. This space is created, especially for Black and Brown folks, for us to be transparent. And it might ruffle some feathers, but if we are asking questions, and if we're asking questions in this space, no need to get offended. That's what we're all in office. That's why some of you are in office for. Councilmember Tran.
Thank you, Deontay. I will try to respond to the question earlier. If I remember correctly, we haven't really, decided or even talked too much about the ordinance that passed by Auburn. But I can tell you that my personal opinion on this is that for those who know me well, heard me share my personal story a couple years ago. I was homeless, in a refugee camp. So, I've been there. I know how it feels when you don't have a roof over your head. I truly believe that, if we can give the right support to, homeless people, give them a hands up instead of hand down, they will turn their life around. I mean, look at me personally. I mean, like I said, I've been there. I was homeless, but with the right support system, with the right help, I'm here today. And, I will continue to contribute back to society. So in regards to that ordinance, personally, I'm not in favor of that. So that's my position. And I just want to share that with all of you today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councilmember Tran, and I appreciate you sharing as well. Let me see if there's any other hands. Last call for hands. Okay, we will now open up. We will now open up the spaces to the non-African diaspora community members. Any questions? Any questions? I actually have a question. Oh, wait a minute. I'll wait for mine. Miss Idahosa.
Go ahead. I had to step away for something, so I missed the thing. But no, go ahead. I'll wait till after you're done.
No, ma'am. No, ma'am. I'm too long-winded. I'm about to put on a full-on concert. So you please, ma'am, please go ahead.
This might be a little off subject, but since we were talking to the city council people, yesterday at the city council, there was a motion, and I'm asking for clarification as well. There was a motion that you guys enacted something when the police was talking about several states have changed law and they left out the word knowingly. So that way, if that word is not in there, people can't get arrested. So our city council voted to add the word knowingly. So now people can be arrested. And they gave a breakdown, which I'd like them to know if they remember it now, of how many Black people were involved in that, how many, Asian people, they had a breakdown. And even knowing those numbers, that the majority of the numbers were Black people and BIPOC people, that they still wanted to make sure that they can be arrested. And all of the council members voted yes on that, which I was really quite surprised that, you advocate for us on one end, but the police is a major issue, but yet when everybody else around the state is saying they're not putting that in the bill, but you guys want it in there to make sure they do get arrested. I was really shocked about that. And the fact that the police chief stated that they are still actually going around. Now, for lack of a better term, I'm not, hanging the street anymore, so I don't know the knowledge anymore. But to me, what I understood it to say, that they are still going around, you should set up people, to see if they can make a fake buy, and it's actually the police, that they are still actively doing that. And with all that's going on in the world, I was quite shocked that every council member sat and voted yes on that. And I would like for every council member that is here to speak for themselves as to why they did that versus leave it alone like everybody else.
Councilmember Honda.
So I'm trying to find the statistics from last night. Mayor, do you know what, or is Chief Wong on?
Yeah, Chief, actually, we've got the chief right here. Chief, can you give those statistics?
Sure, Mayor. Good evening, everyone. Really glad to be with all of you. First of all, I think the statement that I made that knowingly is really pertaining to just possession of illegal narcotics. As far as selling narcotics, marijuana grow homes or somebody selling drugs, the Supreme Court did not address that. That is still legal, or law enforcement can still enforce if somebody is selling drugs. To a juvenile, to an adult, we can still enforce that. So that was my statement last night. In regards to the demographics of people being arrested in Federal Way, there were a total of 96 arrests in 2020. And of the 96 arrests, 49 were white individuals. Let me back up a little bit. Total of 21 females were arrested from the 96 and 75 males. And then whites represented 49 of the rest of the 96, Asians 11, Black, African American 19, American Indian 4, Hispanic 10, and Pacific Islander 1, 2 unknown race. I would say these numbers really represent the demographics of Federal Way. I don't see that any particular race, there's disparity or really draws unusual number from the arrest. So that's what I reported last night.
And if I could actually, Tirza, let me explain what's going on here. The state Supreme Court in State versus Blake ruled the felony statute of drug possession unconstitutional because it lacked an intent element. That's what that, someone has to knowingly possess something. So what they said that was not right, and the court did this on its own motion, it wasn't even a raised issue on appeal, was that if something, a felony crime like this that has so many serious consequences should not be a strict liability crime. In order to be held liable of committing a crime, you have to intend to commit it. So that decision as it invalidated that part of the law. So so now there's a gap in the law. Now any possession of cocaine, heroin, methamphetamine has been legal, the possession of that since the decision. So yesterday's ordinance was essentially the city of Federal Way saying, before we weren't able to take any kind of jurisdiction over this because the state has a preempted jurisdiction on all drug cases, by virtue of their drug law. Once the decision came in, there was a gap in the law. And so what the city of Federal Way did is saying, if the state legislature can't come to an agreement or is not coming to an agreement, which they haven't quite yet, then that it would, possession of a controlled substance in the city of Federal Way will be a gross misdemeanor. That law will be preempted if the state does come through and pass their law. So that's what that is. That's what happened last night.
Okay. Okay, and I actually have one more question in the chat box, and it's actually for the police chief.
Deontay, Lakeisha had a hand up.
She did.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Look, Lakeisha. I'm looking at the
All
chat
right.
box. My apologies.
Oh, no worries. I just had a quick question because I wanted to clarify some of the numbers that the chief just shared, like that there was 20 arrests of African-American people out of the 19, right? What is the population of African-Americans in the city of Federal Way?
I think it ranges. I've heard between 10 and 15%. I've heard different ranges in that range.
I think, consistent with the school district, it's a little closer to 10. So I think that's where we start to question about disproportionality. And I just wonder, and then the same thing I heard for Native American people, and they're only like 1% of our population. So for me, I think I start listening for disproportionality, and that's what literally my heart starts racing, because then I start leaning into, these are our family members, these are the people we're talking about. And that's the disproportionality that concerns me. That's what, I'll leave it there.
Representative Taylor.
I think I can weigh in a little bit on the Blake decision. I'm serving on the leadership team for the House in response to the Blake decision. And there are 3 elements and 3 challenges that we're trying to address with the Blake decision, which knowingly, apparently the legislature for the last 30 years should have put the intent element into the requirements for the legislation, and they did not. And so we now need to go back and invalidate or resentence a whole lot of people who were criminalized over an unjust, unconstitutional law. This means that we have to go back to 1971. So these are thousands and thousands of people who are entitled to their legal financial obligations returned to them. They are entitled to resentencing and other resources because of this impact of this unjust law. Next, that we're working on a statutory fix to the statute that's in question, and it's very narrow as to possession. It doesn't impact other things like driving under the influence or the behavioral problems that are associated with the substance use disorder and things that people think about when they are thinking about someone who has a drug problem. And most importantly, we are moving away from criminalization as a response to the drug war. We need to put incredible investments in the substance use recovery continuum of care. And that means investing in recovery navigators who help people get into resources like the LEAD program, the Law Enforcement Assisted Diversion. So this is pre-booking diversion. So someone would never even have any contact with police or the criminal justice system if they have a challenge or if they are encountering police. Next, you need to ensure that we have resources for treatment. There are treatment deserts throughout the state, even in King County, even in our region in South King County. And then next, we need to make sure that we are funding the recovery support services because, when someone goes through treatment, we need to make sure that they have all the resources available to stay sober, to move their life in the direction that keeps them being healthy. And so if we're not making these investments on the public health side and treating the whole person and really looking at a restorative justice model, we will continue to cycle people in and out of our jails. And imagine if it's like $150 to jail someone, each day when these investments cost less than half of that. And so we can make better investments to support community and help us getting whole and help us getting more healthy and helping folks not be involved in the things that we're most concerned about. The Blake decision also affects people who are recreationally using. So if you think about folks who are using in their home, they're not going to get arrested by the police in the same rate as someone who's forced to be homeless. If you think about someone who is involved in like a party and they go to a rave and they have ecstasy pills, we want to make sure that the response to their needs is measured and not over hammered in terms of criminalization over things that they're involved in. We want people to be able to have recovery and move their life in the right direction. And this is the state's public health response and what we're trying to do. And this means not just millions of dollars, this is hundreds of millions of dollars of investment and community involvement. So, you know, I'll be doing regional tours, I'll be doing regional talks, I'll be talking to our neighbors to get more input on what this framework should look like, not only in the 30th district, but throughout the state. And so this is the beginning of the conversation. I've had conversations with law enforcement, municipal leaders. I have had conversations with county leaders. And there is wide support for additional public health resources, including behavioral health and substance use recovery. So my hope is that Federal Way will join the drumbeat in making sure that there are resources available for folks in our own backyard.
Oh, just Jamila Taylor, you're just everything. Coming into this, I'm sorry, I just want to make sure this whole year, within your first year, even through the pandemic, for you to go through the space and even run, people are looking at you, sister. I heard you on the radio yesterday, the other day, driving, and just with joy, a smile on my face. It's one thing. It's one thing about her story, but when Black women lead, they lead. So I just want to make sure that you know that we see you, we appreciate you. We appreciate you all out there in Olympia, especially our Black and brown people out there. I think it's about 9 of us out there. So we appreciate y'all out there in the space.
Just know that Federal Way in the 30th district is deep in leadership. And we have so many folks, community leaders, family leaders, just everyday leaders, including Rep. Johnson, who's been leading us on police reform. So again, if anyone needs to have any information about police reform statewide, it's also starting to get national attention. Mayor Farrell, you probably want to call Jesse because he probably knows some information and resources that can help you, on ramp to police reform that's appropriate for our community.
Absolutely. Hold on, we have one more question. And if this computer, if anybody want to buy me a mouse, it'll be great. Hold on one second. This is for Police Chief Mr. Hung. Is it illegal to film the police in Federal Way? George Floyd would have never gotten justice if concerned residents hadn't filmed the incident, despite being told by officers to stop filming. Do residents have the same opportunity, free from prosecution here, to protect our Black neighbors?
Yeah, it's absolutely okay to video the police. Public place, we have no expectation of privacy. We train our officers to that effect. I would just say that you can't, obviously you want to keep your distance, not interfere, that type of thing, but absolutely you can film police doing their work.
Okay, and I do see, thank you very much. Terry Rogers-Camp.
Thank you. And I don't mean to take up too much space, but since we were talking about the Blake decision, I just really want to encourage Mayor Farrell and esteemed council members that the Blake decision gives us an opportunity to change the process with respect to police contact. I really, really encourage the city and the state to have a statute or an ordinance that decriminalizes possession. we, especially the defense bar and the Black community, are very concerned that if there is some kind of punitive component to this, that it should be an infraction, and that the money that is spent on creating, putting people in jail or sending them through our courts, that money is spent on a behavioral component. And it is critical that the impacted communities be allowed to sit at the table to determine this fix. And so I'm strongly encouraging the city and Your Honor, Representative Taylor, to decriminalize possession. It should be an infraction, if anything, and we need to focus on whole health to families, behavioral health, remembering that the underlying issue with regard to drug use more often than not is mental health issues, which Black and brown people are traumatized. They're bombarded with macro and microaggressions every day. We have so many different traumas, and so I cannot say it enough. I encourage the esteemed council in the city of Federal Way, and also encouraging other cities, decriminalize possession. It should be an infraction. It shouldn't have anything to do with the court system. Thank you.
Police Chief Hong.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity. I want to tell you, as a police professional, we are not interested in locking people up or incarcerating for drug offenses. That's what I would tell you, is that significant percentage of our crime that we deal with every day on our streets has a nexus to drugs. 80 to 90% of the crime, particularly property crime right now, it's getting really bad and has direct nexus to drugs. And when we have shootings, quite often, maybe sometimes at Highway 99 or motels, it is drug related. Now, long-term treatment, absolutely. We want to get people off drugs. The more people we can get off drugs, the safer our communities will be. But I can tell you that significant number of gun violence in King County right now is drug related. Last year, murder in King County is up 58%. And I can tell you, we can go back to Federal Way, 2016. Many of our youth that were shot in our community, it was for drug-related stuff. So what I tell you as a police professional is we got to have the less drug we have in our community, the safer all our residents are going to be. So I want to just give you, from my police perspective, as a police chief, I am not interested in locking people up. But on the other hand, it is a tool for law enforcement. If we have shootings at a particular motel, and if we go in there and there's drug activity, we clear that up. It's amazing. It's like day and night. We had a hotel here that we had regular violence, people being stabbed, shot, you name it. And another facility came in, took over. Guess what? No crime, virtually nothing. It's a different facility now. So what I would tell you is that it is a serious public safety concern. I'm glad that millions and millions is being going into treatment, but that's the reality of what we're dealing with right now. Just wanted to share that.
Thank you. Before I call in the next person, I just want to just be very I just feel like I just have to comment on something, especially when we have conversations about the war on drugs, right? When we look at spaces, like, it also comes down to what resources are out there being provided. Because, I mean, we look at drug court that got started in '93, that pretty much was an attack on most of our people that look like us. At this point in time, we're still looking at drug court with 90s policies in the space. And I'm talking to you as a person that was a full-blown meth addict. Where we're at in the space and the climate now is totally different than back then. So it's not just the lead programs that can come into the space. It really is the policies that are in place to actually show up for those community members. I thank God for the community members that showed up around me at that time. You know, even me having to go to court in the space, and that judge could have locked me up in that space, but he believed that I could make it in my space. And and I will just speak very bluntly that when we're talking about harm reduction in our community members that have dealt with substance abuse issues, you talk a good game. People talk a lot about being there, but it's a hell of a lot more impact when we have community leaders that stop the rhetoric around the war on drugs and actually show the hell up and bring those people in to create those policies. And it's not just up to the people in the drug court, it's also the people that need to be held accountable in that space is city council representatives. Since you're here in this space, it's up to you as well. If we have Mr. Tran say in the space that he's been impacted by homelessness and he's made it out of his space, and people showed up for him, what do you think would happen for not just the Federal Way mayor, but also the SeaTac mayor and the Des Moines mayor and the Tukwila mayor? Because see, what the hell I see happen is the North End, they have bans and harm reduction spaces and needle exchange programs and all that cute stuff. The privileged have those resources. But what I see happening in that space from Tukwila to Federal Way is there's little to no damn resources out there for my people. And they keep on getting arrested for those specific things. But with no resource, what do you think's gonna happen? I digress. Cynthia?
Thank you. I just wanted to acknowledge that Tamara had asked a question earlier, and I think it got lost in all of the chats. Tamara's question was, do arrestees self-disclose their race, or do officers make a determination based on appearance? I think that this is for the police chief.
Yeah, when there's an arrest made, usually you're just getting the information off the driver's license. It's possible the officers could also ask, but typically, like on a traffic stop, they wouldn't ask about race. But when there's arrest made, you do have data entry you're required to enter. So I think it's case by case, but generally speaking, you're going off of the state driver's license.
Thank you very much, Ms. Idahosa.
Hello again. I just wanted to add to the fact that a lot of people think that your average, if there is such a thing, addict is somebody who, is poor and just, is trying to just use drugs just for, I don't think anybody wakes up in the morning and say, I just want to be an addict when I grow up, because we are forgetting the privileged people that made so many people addicts. I don't want anybody to forget about the Seattle Pain Clinic and those men that owned it. There were several brothers that created a whole lot of drug addicts. They're not in jail. They were allowed to operate and overdose people for years and were not really held accountable. They shut the operations down, but I don't think any of them went to jail. And the doctors that were allowing them to prescribe all that medicine, even the fact that I think there's some lawsuits because the drugs that they were prescribing people, they already knew would be addictive. So we can't, I don't want people to just think that when you see somebody who's a drug addict, you don't know how they got there. They may have been a hardworking person and had an accident at work. That accident, then they were overprescribed by a doctor, someone that they trust. They tell you take 3 pills, and you do the 3 pills, knowingly full well those 3 pills are going to get you addicted. So how many people are addicts because of that? And we don't look at that all the time. But I want to keep people reminded, because I was at those Seattle Pain Clinics watching people, and I was challenging doctors when they were over, and I'm not a doctor, but I have enough common sense to know that's a high prescription, a high dose. Are you sure that's what you want that person to take? Well, maybe I'll just lower it down. A simple conversation, they lowered it down. But the fact is, how many people did they not lower it down for? And how many people died at their hand that everybody wants to forget about? So when you look at somebody who's an addict, don't just assume that they woke up that morning and decided they want to be one. Somebody other than their own personal issue contributed to that. And again, the people that have money, that don't look like us, who made a lot of money from giving out those pills, have no accountability. So I just want to be, just something to think about.
This is my first time ever meeting you, and I see where Lynn gets it from. Okay, the apple, yeah, I appreciate it. Sai.
Yeah, thank you, Ms. Idahosa. This is a question for any of the council members that want to speak to it. So the police department is put in a position of ensuring safety, but a lot of the folks that Chief Wong or the other officers book for either drug use or other issues don't actually get prosecuted by either the King County prosecutors or other law enforcement agencies. So what can council do to give more restorative solutions and investments so that the chief and the other officers aren't put in a position as laborers of having to choose not to be biased against Black and brown folk who are disproportionately affected by the war on drugs, but also trying to keep drugs and guns separated so that people aren't dying?
Well, this is Linda Kochmar, and I can address that, I think. Having been in the legislature, I think that the nexus between who's being arrested and what the King County prosecutor can do in our county, I think it's coming from the legislature. I'm not sure how much is coming out of the King County prosecutor's office. But last night we passed an ordinance that said, if you knowingly have drugs in your possession, you could be arrested in the city of Federal Way. But the county, we're having a problem with the county. They're choosing who's going to be prosecuted or not. And I think I have had 2 immediate family members who have been addicted. Both are now dead. I am a mother and a grandmother who would have preferred to have them somewhere so that they would have been able to get help. I don't care where, just because I've had addicts tell me that unless they are getting the help that they need, they're going to go right back to the addiction. So I don't know if that's going to come from the prosecutor's office, how much we can do in the city of Federal Way, but I'm willing, believe me, to help any way that I can with this issue. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Tamar?
Yes, thank you. I'm really appreciating this conversation on drug use and those who are involved in pushing drugs. And it's not lost on me that we're talking about structural issues or structural inequities, or we didn't just get here by accident, especially for Black and Native folks who are involved in drugs or illicit activities that around drugs. And we're not talking about employment, which is one of the main reasons why folks will choose illicit criminal activities to engage in. We're not talking about the fact that people don't have access to other ways of supporting their families or their communities. And so what I'm wondering, given that this is a community conversation, what sorts of community-led solutions can Federal Way Council and Mayor actually engage in for us to think through what are ways that we actually bring folks back into legitimate ways of earning income and taking care of their families, given that so many of us are dispossessed, disenfranchised from a system that was never designed for us and doesn't work for us. And so I'm asking anybody, any of the electeds to actually engage with this question.
Well, I think it's important for there to be resources out there. What city government can do is make sure that we've got a good job location, but also where people can get jobs, but also to be able to support, to have human services funding. Several of the people on this call now have been on this Human Services Commission, making sure that we've got dollars to be able to help our neighbors, and there's all kinds of programs for that. and making sure that we're supporting organizations that can reach out and help people. The Multi-Service Center is actually, I was a board member for 10 years, and they're really one of the great organizations in the city. And their mission statement used to be, I don't know what it is now, but it was helping people achieve self-sufficiency. And so there are a lot of great organizations in this community. There are a lot of churches. There's a really great community here in Federal Way that people are invested in helping them. But I think we all need to support those organizations and those organizations and groups that are adding to the community and helping people at various times, and making sure those organizations stay healthy.
Thank you very much. And Ms. Rogers and Ms. Kraft, and then we're going to wrap it up.
I was really here just to listen tonight, but I was just thinking about today. I'm a child family advocate, and I had some clients today pick up, and the fact of the matter is I had a parent cry and bawl her eyes out and unconsolably because of what's going on in the secondary trauma. And unfortunately, her daughter on a Woody daycare today asked her, "Mom, who am I supposed to call when I'm in trouble?" So I really believe there is this conversation that needs to be had in terms of secondary trauma in our community as it relates to our families and children. Naturally, I expect, the school district to take lead on this effort, but on a city level, at some point, Mayor Fair, I would love to partner with you to engage in a conversation with family and children on secondary trauma as it relates to police brutality and all that it encompasses as it relates to safety. There's a real harm that's happening in our community, and our children are receiving the brunt of this, and it trickles down throughout the entire family unit. And ultimately, we want our children to feel safe around law enforcement. We want our children to feel like when they're in trouble, when there's a need, that they can call 911 and the individual that arrives is there to protect and serve them. So at some point we need to engage in a conversation sooner than later. Thank you.
I would, Trinice, I would welcome that. I think that's absolutely, that there's been, such information out there where we want to make sure that children have that question answered and that they feel comfortable. It's a sacred, the job that the police department does is a sacred responsibility, and there needs to be a constant reinforcement of that the use of force is an absolute last resort, and that that when officers are called in the situation, they're called to make it better and safer. So I think that I've got some ideas that where we could message and get word out and in various different forums to make sure that we're messaging and also leading by example as well.
And I know I am the chair of the Diversity Commission, but I really want this effort to be a community-led effort. It's very important that it is a community-led effort, and I'm totally detached from the city in this effort, so I can be as transparent and as authentic as possible. Right. So thank you for moving forward in this effort. I appreciate your leadership, and thank you, Chief Wong.
Thanks, Trinice.
Ms. Kraft.
Thank you. Sorry that I'm not on video today. I'm trying to run around with my kid, but this is just a comment to respond to a number of the questions that were posed today. First of all, I think that it's really unfortunate, but because of the structures and the systems that have been put in place, all of the funding has been very much reactive. That's why, unfortunately, some members of our community only are able to get services through the criminal legal system. And Ms. Terry Rogers Kemp knows that for some of the people who are drug dependent and who do get into drug court, that may have been their only option to get treatment, because otherwise that wouldn't have been available, because those people may not have the money. So if we're looking at what can we do as a community to address these issues, not just for drug dependency, but behavioral health issues, we really need to invest in the community up front and having safe community spaces for all levels of diversity, so that people don't then have to, internalize their trauma, their secondary trauma, or their generational trauma, and turn to these addictive behaviors, whether it be drugs or alcohol or whatever vice that there is, I mean, including violence. And so one of my biggest concerns is in taking a look at sort of the Blake decision is, as a prosecutor, I've been going through hundreds of cases in the past month, trying to figure out what we're going to do, and ultimately dismissing where we need to. And the unfortunate reality of some of these dismissals is some people are just losing all of their services. And I'm not trying to say that we should criminalize people so that they get services, but we need to have a more robust system in place so that it's not react so we're not basing all of our decisions on reaction, and it's more preventative. Something that we can do as a city and as South King County City is we need more resources in the area. We need, if for the law enforcement officers that we have, we need to have some sort of programs in place like the LEAD program, but the LEAD program doesn't work for everybody, right? We need our officers to have the tools to say, instead of booking this person, can I call an outreach worker for this low level offense? If that were an option, I would hope that our law enforcement in Federal Way would use that option, and we don't have to jail people who aren't dangerous for our community. But I really hope that moving forward, there are tools in our community, not just law enforcement, to also address these behavioral health concerns. And yeah, thank you for letting me take up some space.
Thank you so much for that. I see that there aren't any more questions, but I just, Lynn, I think you can close us out, but I do want to just thank everyone for coming tonight. One thing I can honestly say I loved about this is my first time coming. It was 54 people in the chat on this call, and 54 people stayed on the whole time, meaning that you all care about this community. That you like, whether people had it wrong or you wanted to hold people accountable in this space, you are all still here. See, I live in Seattle, and you already know it's Game of Thrones out here in the spaces of community representation, but you are all here. Your representatives are here. Your council people are here. Your police chief is here. I can't even think of the last time where that happens, or well, it could happen during a press conference, but in the meantime, they're here. So I do want to make sure that I thank y'all for being in this space. And I know that these conversations may be tough, but it speaks volumes just to be showing up. I will now pass it off to Lynn.
Thank you all. Sorry for the Elmo in the back. My son's decided I'm done with work for the day, and I still have one board meeting left for the night. So I will keep it short and brief. First, definitely we will be inviting Deontay back because this has been a very pleasant meeting. I appreciate that everyone was able to be heard and share their thoughts. Naked Men, we're going on YouTube. So I would just like to thank you all for joining us. Please don't forget, we dropped in the chat a bunch tonight. Please take that survey for Sound Transit. Get your thoughts heard as a community. Like Mayor Farrell said, city councils made their thoughts heard. They've done an official letter. Now it's up to us to say what we want. I want to say, I heard last time that Sound Transit changed their decision. It was like, it only took like 300 or 400 responses. We have 100,000 residents. So just like we all showed up tonight, tell a friend to fill out that survey, whether you support it, don't support it. Let them know what your feelings are and how you feel about how it will affect you. As always, tune into Thursday Thoughts. This week we have the Poison Control Center, yet again, amazing partners. The doctors there coming and talking about youth suicide prevention, which has been extremely high in all of our communities. So I'm really grateful for the thought partnership of our school district and all of our other partners in making sure we prioritize bringing these conversations to our community. That's all I got, folks. Thank you so much. We'll see you next quarter.
Lynn. And the next Federal Way Black Collective community meeting is?
Pam. Mayor Farrell's office usually sets that date.
No,
Should
not
be
the
in-
quarterly meeting.
Oh, our community meeting. I'm sorry. Tuesday, April 27th. Thank you, Cynthia. So next Tuesday, let's continue this conversation. That is where we kind of plan for some of the things we'll bring here and make sure if you guys have questions, need statistics, we do that background planning so you're fully prepared to, you know, feel like you can make your point, or if there's anything we can help you build on in community, that is what we're here for. And thank you for all our esteemed elected officials. It is late, especially to our legislators. You guys are out there making your final week count. The invite is sent out on the city Facebook and Black Collective Facebook quarterly, and it's also on our website, which is www.fwblackcollective.com. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everybody. Great questions.
Good night. You owe me lunch. You owe me dinner next time, Mayor Farrell. This is a long time. I didn't mind. I didn't realize it was going to be long.
You got it.
All right.
Oh, you
Y'all
got
have
it.
a blessed night.
All right. Bye, guys. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Oh,
Good night. Thank you.
good night.